Hey, what is up, guys? Sorry for the lack of videos. Um, Life definitely has been thrown in the way. I know I said that last video too, but man, this summer has been super hectic. I'm usually a homebody during the summer and don't really do much, but this year I've really been getting out of my shell, going hanging out with friends, doing things like that. And then I had a family vacation, 4th of July, all the fun stuff of the world came up. And to be honest, I had just kind of distanced myself from God there for a moment, and I forgot what I was really put on this earth to do, and I was too busy, hanging out with friends and uh, hanging out with my family and things like that. But I wasn't focused on my true love, Christ, and that's what I want to talk to you today about: is the true love, our one true love, Christ, our husband, because we are the bridegroom of Christ, and I want to talk about Christ being our husband, and many people get a little bit confused with the language used within uh, what we call Christianese during these conversations of us being the bridegroom to church. They're like, what do you mean we're getting married to Christ? And what I mean is, in the Bible, it says it many a times, and it means that we're supposed to be one union, us and Christ together in one union, just like a marriage, that we're supposed to focus on this one thing and nurture this one thing and love this one thing and be with Christ in a way that we see an earthly marriage in the way that we have today. And the question I want to pose to you today is, if you would jump in front of a bullet for your husband or wife, would you jump in front of a bullet for Christ? And I'm saying that, you know, kind of sarcastically, like jumping in front of a bullet, but realistically, would you take a risk bigger for your husband and wife than you would for Christ? Sorry, just smacked my microphone. So, what I was looking at here is in Ephesians 5:25, it says, "Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it." What he's talking about here in the church of Ephesus is he's talking about um, instructions for marriage. Here is what Paul is writing to the church of Ephesus, and he's giving them instructions on how to love each other and things such as that. But I just want to point out the point here at the start of this, even as Christ also loved the church, that, and he's describing how we should love our wives, and he's describing that, Christ laid down his life for us, so us as husbands should lay down our lives for our wives, and that's great. But don't you think that our love for Christ should be so much more? We should be willing to do so much more for Christ than we would, our significant other within this world. And I'm not saying that marriage is a bad thing. I'm not saying that holy acquaintance is a bad thing. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying the man who binds us together in marriage should receive more love than the marriage. You know what I'm saying? That we should love Christ so much that um, the love for our wife or our husband or whatever looks almost as hatred. And somewhere in the Bible it says that, I don't remember the exact verse, but it says that our love for him should make every other love in our life look like hatred. Another thing I wanted to point out here is in Revelation. If we go to Revelation 21:2, let me flip over here. I forgot to have all my marks in my Bible, my little bookmarks, so I'm going to have to flip a little bit this evening as I go through these verses, because I just have the verse here. I don't have the full verse. I just have it wrote down in my notes here. Don't want to misquote them. Revelation 21. For some reason, this Bible likes to really stick. I usually use my smaller one when I'm doing these videos or when I'm preaching or something like that. Revelation 21:2. And here it's talking about the new heaven and the new earth, what he's seen when he's seen the new heaven and the new earth. And in verse 2, and it says, "And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband." Again, here we get another vision of marriage. And I just want to pose the question then again, if we're in this marriage with Christ, why aren't we doing more for him? Why are we not doing more for Christ than we would for, our husband and wife, And I've repeated the same question because I want it to really stick to you. I know repetitiveness gets annoying. That's exactly what I'm trying to be, is annoying. I'm trying to get it through your head that if we loved Christ as much as we love our significant other, we would be doing so much more for him. When we first started dating our boyfriend and girlfriend, which was to become our wife or our husband, we're doing these big dates. We're going, we're going out to the nice restaurants. We're going bowling after the nice restaurant. After we go bowling, we're going for a walk in the park and we're getting our flowers. And you're doing all these big gestures because you want to impress them. And that's kind of how our Christian walk is too, is we want to impress God when we first get saved and we're on fire and we have a zeal for the Lord and we want to do all these things. And then it kind of starts burning down. But in a marriage, if you're dating somebody and you let that start burning down, they're not going to be interested in you anymore. They're going to be like, well, why doesn't he love me like he used to love me? Why doesn't he do all these things that he used to do for me? Why doesn't he love me? And Christ is the same way. If we have this big old fire burning for Christ, this love for Christ, like every Christian does when we get saved, and we start letting that die down, then are we really building a relationship with Christ? And that's what Christianity is based off of, is building this relationship with Christ. So if we're not building the relationship up with him, we might as well be tearing it down. And if we're tearing it down, we're not building that relationship with Christ. And if we never build that relationship with Christ, can we really say that we're Christian? Or are you just someone who believes that there's a God? And that was a question I had here. And then another question that I wanted to pose just here at the end of this video, just as a rhetorical question for you to think on, is in 2 Corinthians. Let me get over here. And in chapter 11, 2 Corinthians here, my pages are stuck together again. Who would have thought? And in verse 2, it says, "For I am jealous over you with godly jealousy, for I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Christ." He's saying that Paul is writing to the church of Corinth here, that he has espoused them to one husband, and that is Christ. That he has taught them that they should be looking for one husband, and that be Christ. They should be looking and focusing on this one relationship within their life to be building. And here in Corinth, if you didn't know, Corinth had a problem with some people getting up and preaching and talking about other idols and gods and things like that, and trying to change the views of Christianity from what Paul taught them. And what he's saying here is to keep your eyes on Christ, be focused on that relationship with Christ, just like you would as if you were a spouse to somebody and you were going to be getting married to them. You should be focusing on that person. You should be building that relationship with that person. That's exactly what he's telling us here to do. So in closing here, I just want to say, if you would do it for your husband and wife, why aren't you doing it for Christ? Why aren't you trying to build that relationship more and more every single day? Why aren't you waking up and saying your prayer just like you would wake up to your wife or your husband and say, good morning, honey, I love you? Why aren't you doing that with Christ? Why aren't you waking up saying, good morning, honey, I love you? Why aren't you closing your day out with, good morning, Christ, I love you? Good night, Christ, I love you? All these kinds of things. If you would do it for your significant other, why not for Christ? That's all I had today. Sorry again for such space in between videos. We're getting back to it. I'm hoping to have another one of these out in a week or two. Hopefully, going to get back to the 2-a-week schedule as long as nothing goes awry within that. But love you guys. Hope you got something out of this, and thank you for listening. Bye.